And you know the drill. We're trained to look for the glory. The underdog skier from the tiny town, the gold medalist you find out loves to knit and goes viral for it, the Olympic spirit, the triumph over the human spirit.
We're gonna take on the world!
Packaged, polished, and it's sold to us every 2 years. But today we're not doing the highlight reel. Today we're looking at the machinery behind it. Because while you and I see the glitz and the medals, the athletes are navigating a legal minefield, one that dictates what they can say, what they can wear, and crucially, what they can post online. This isn't a side policy, it is the machine that protects a multi-billion-dollar brand while legally muzzling the very athletes who build it. This isn't about dress codes or showing up on time. I'm talking about the global legal framework at the heart of this story. It's called Rule 40. And if you've never heard of it, that's kind of the point. Rule 40 controls what athletes say, show, and most importantly, monetize during the Olympic period, the exact moment the world is watching. I read the fine print, and I'm not going to pretend I'm neutral about it. In fact, I hate it, because it isn't just a rule, it's a system. It's designed to silence athletes, to protect the IOC's commercial ecosystem by limiting the athletes who generate the value. So here's the point I'm trying to make in this video. The IOC harvests the athletes' stories for content, while simultaneously preventing that same athlete from making money off their own story during the only 27 days the world is actually watching. And that is the silencing strategy. And I'm not going to be doing this on opinion. I'm using primary documents, the official Milano Cortina 2026 FAQ, the illustrative guidance, the IOC's own financial materials, and the social and digital media guidelines. They're all linked in the show notes, and I also recorded a full read-through of every page. This is the justification the IOC gives for why you can't make money, because I want you to hear how this system describes itself. They enable solidarity, ensuring that collectively we support all teams in the Olympic spirit. But I will warn you, accordingly, the Olympic Charter, these documents are written to feel, has traditionally established limitations on the ability of athletes, boring. These limited restrictions help to maintain the distinctiveness of official Olympic marketing programs and so sustain the funding of global athlete participation and the organization of the Olympic Games. Designed to make you glaze over. And that's the trick, because boring language often hides loud consequences. During these 27 days, it's not a free market. It's a locked market, an exclusivity window where only approved brands get to act like the moment is even happening. Think of the Olympics not only as sport, but as a temporary monopoly over attention. Your attention, my attention. And in any monopoly, the first thing you control is who gets the profit. Spoiler, it is not the athletes. It's heavy. So instead of throwing legal terms at you for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to translate the rule book into real life. I made 2 athletes. Not real people, composites, but every constraint they face is pulled straight from the documents. And it mirrors what the real athletes are bound by starting today. First, we have Sarah. Sarah is the underdog skier. She's funded by her community, and she's representing what I'm calling the local betrayal. Second is Jacob, the figure skater, and a content creator. He represents a monetization blackout and what I'm going to be calling digital sharecropping. But before we dive into their stories, we have to set the clock. Because in the Olympic world, time is legal tender. And for Milano Cortina 2026, the games period runs from January 30th to February 24th, 2026. Those 27 days. And during those 27 days, the rules of capitalism change for anyone wearing an Olympic credential. The free market is suspended and a regulated monopoly takes over. Okay, meet Sarah. Sarah is an alpine skier and she's good. She's really, really good. But she's not famous. And she isn't fully funded by her national federation either. And this part matters because the IOC's own Rule 40 documents quietly admit what most fans don't see. A lot of athletes receive little public funding, sometimes none, and rely completely on private support. It states, while some teams receive public funding, others receive none. These rely completely on funding from private sources. Private support sounds fancy, but for Sarah, it's not. It's the mom and pop ski shop that's waxed her skis for free since she was 12, and a regional energy bar company that have all chipped in. These are the people who actually pay for the plane tickets, the coaching, the physical therapy, the equipment. And here's where the silencing strategy starts to do something subtle and brutal. It gives these people a sterile legal name. In IOC language, they're called non-Olympic partners. Doesn't that just sound like the enemy? And in a commercial sense, they kind of are. And the system treats them that way because they're the brands that didn't pay the IOC hundreds of millions of dollars for the right to associate with the games. So for the rest of this section in the video, I'm going to be calling them what they functionally become under Rule 40. The Nopers, the non-official partners, erased, restricted, and silenced. You know, the ones that actually kept Sarah alive in sport and then get silenced at the moment she matters the most. And this brings us to the first conflict. Sarah makes the Olympic team. It's a massive moment, not just for her, but for the entire community that got her there. The mom and pop ski shop, the energy bar. And let's say that they have put in collectively $40,000 into her over the last 4 years, which is a huge investment for them. And they want to celebrate. They want to run a billboard, an ad, a post, something simple, something that says, "Good luck, Sarah, go get gold in Milano." And that is exactly what they cannot do. They cannot say good luck if they do it during the games period, during that blackout period, unless they comply with the IOC's very strict set of rules called generic advertising. This is where the illustrative guidance document becomes almost darkly fascinating, because it's basically a rule book for how to be as boring and forgettable as possible. And it has 3 trapdoors: the 90-day rule, the escalation ban, and the content sterilization rule. So the first hurdle, the 90-day in-market rule. For Nopers to run an ad featuring Sarah during the games period, that campaign must have already been running for at least 90 days. Meaning it had to be in market before October 29th, 2025. You heard that right, the deadline is back in October for the Olympics in February. And the practical effect here is devastating because many athletes don't even qualify until December and late January. The documents even kind of acknowledge this. They say they'll apply the rule flexibly for a late selection, but the baseline requirement is that the ad has to be running months in advance. So Sarah can earn the spot and her community sponsors can be locked out before they even knew she was going. And that's not a loophole, that is the design. You're not allowed to create a campaign because she made the Olympics. It has to look like business as usual, which is part of the second trapdoor. So even if your Nopers started early enough, they can't escalate, which means if they usually run 1 ad a week, they can't suddenly start running 10 a week because Sarah officially made it. And then they can't run 20 a week because she's in the finals. And that's because, again, it's no longer business as usual. It looks like capitalizing on the games. And to actually capitalize on the games, well, that's a privilege reserved for those brands that have paid the IOC those hundreds of millions of dollars. But it gets even stricter. Let's look at the content of the ad itself. It has to be generic. You might hear the word generic and think, okay, no Olympic rings, no official logos, no venues, that's fine. Those are all trademarks. You can't use them if you didn't buy them. But in IOC language, it goes way beyond trademarks. Generic means the ad cannot create any connection to the games whatsoever. The illustrative guidance gives us specific examples. We're going to start by looking at example 2. It shows an ad with a picture of an athlete and the text that says, "Road to Milano Cortina," and that's banned. The word Milano combined with the athlete creates what they call an unauthorized association. Or take example 5. It is really interesting. It shows an ad that uses iconic Italian imagery. So it doesn't say Olympics, it doesn't say Milano, it just has a background that looks vaguely like the Italian Alps or maybe some historic Italian architecture. The document says this creates a connection with the games and therefore is not allowed either. So the mom and pop shop that sells skis cannot have a picture of Sarah on a snowy mountain if that mountain looks too Italian or implies the Winter Games. So Sarah is at the absolute peak of her career. The entire world is watching, and the people who literally paid to get her there are legally forced to be quieter than ever. That's the local betrayal and the key to the silencing strategy. It isn't only about protecting the rings, it's about protecting the monopoly on meaning, and the system demands that the support network essentially goes dark at the moment of triumph. But it still gets more personal than that, and this takes us to the thank you gag. This one really got me going. So Sarah finishes her race. Maybe she wins a medal, maybe she doesn't. But she's standing in the finish area, adrenaline pumping, and she wants to pull out her phone and just post a thank you to the ski shop. She has to be very, very careful how she does that. According to the authorized commercial opportunities section in the guidance, she is limited to exactly one simple thank you message per personal sponsor per Olympics. Just one. And the content of that post is also heavily restricted. She cannot post a photo of herself in Olympic uniform. She cannot post a photo of herself with her medal. And she cannot post a photo that was taken inside an Olympic venue. Imagine this scenario. She's at the Olympics, possibly holding a medal that the ski shop helped her win. But to thank them, she would have to post a selfie from her living room that she took 3 months ago. Because the guidance explicitly states no Olympic properties and no photographs or video from Olympic venues. The goal is to sever any visual link between non-Olympic sponsors and the Olympic glory. They want to make sure that the mom and pop ski shop gets zero rub-off value from the Olympic context. Meanwhile, and this part's infuriating, the IOC is filming, NBC is filming, CBC is filming, and they are making those tearjerker video packages about her struggle, about how she worked 2 jobs and her community rallied around her. They might even interview mom and pop themselves. They use Sarah's story to sell the broadcast, and it's great TV. But they legally block that same community support from being recognized by the athlete in a meaningful, timely way. They're harvesting the story while starving the co-authors of that story. Are you starting to hate Rule 40 yet? And we still haven't even met Jacob and his story. So let's pivot to Jacob. Jacob is a figure skater, but he's also a creator athlete. He has a YouTube channel, he has a big TikTok following, and his value isn't in just how high he jumps, it's the audience that he brings with him. And for an athlete like Jacob, the Olympics are the ultimate content opportunity. It's his peak earning window. Figure skating is a niche sport for 3 years and 11 months. And then for a couple weeks, it becomes one of the biggest shows on earth. This is when he should be cashing in. He should be vlogging from the village, brand deals and gear and doing behind the scenes, but he runs headfirst into the blackout period. And for a digital native, this is essentially a financial gag because Jacob didn't just grow up watching sports, he grew up publishing. And Rule 40 treats publishing like a threat. This is what I call digital sharecropping. Jacob does the labor, years of skating, of building his audience. He grows the crop, but during the games, he doesn't own the harvest. The IOC does. And the enforcement mechanism is a phrase that sounds harmless until you realize what it means. Deemed association. That's the line that Jacob cannot cross. If his content connects his sponsors to the Olympic movement, even indirectly, it becomes a violation. And we're going to look at the social and digital media guidelines because this is where the muzzle really gets technical. Jacob can post, but only inside a box. No live streaming, no posting competition footage, no medal ceremonies, no anthem, no celebrations on the field of play. And if he does post a video, it can't be longer than 2 minutes. That's not a trademark rule. That's how you stop an athlete from telling a full story without ever saying the word censorship. It forces Jacob to tell his Olympic story in fragments, quick clips, sanitized moments, while the only people allowed to publish the full story, including his story, are the rights holders. And then that's when the monetization trap closes. During the period from January 30th to February 24th, the second Jacob's content becomes commercial, which means just enabling ads on YouTube, paid marketing, platform deal, promoting a third party, it's either banned outright or shoved into that generic advertising category from before. And his personal sponsors aren't even allowed to comment or share on his posts either, even if he follows the rules. Example 12 in the illustrative guidance shows a scenario where a brand simply comments on the athlete's post. If that comment or post uses any Olympic properties, it's a violation. The example they show is a brand posting, "Amazing performance in Milano yesterday by our new brand ambassador at athlete name. That's how to #bring the power." And it's a repost of the athletes that looks completely fine and legal. It's a generic photo. I don't see any medal or Italian or Olympic suggestions, but it still has a big red X. It is not allowed. Think about how insane this is. Jacob is literally in the biggest story of his life, but for sponsor content, he has to talk like he's nowhere and his sponsors aren't allowed to show pride or excitement for him. He cannot say the quiet part that the entire world knows out loud. I'm at the Olympics and I didn't do it alone. I had amazing help from amazing sponsors. Thank you to everyone who got me here. Because under this system, even the fact of him being there becomes controlled property. And this is where the hierarchy of sponsors becomes impossible to ignore and starts to boil my blood. During the games period, only Olympic partners can do real-time congratulations. So play it out with me. Jacob wins. He goes viral. It's the moment of his life. Samsung, who has never talked to Jacob in their life, but they're a top partner, they can create an ad using his image and his video as part of a team context or their generic Olympic context, because they bought the rights to the entire event. But Jacob's actual sponsor, the Skateblade company that has paid him a monthly retainer for 4 years, the ones who actually designed the blades he's wearing on his feet, they're legally prohibited from running an ad saying "Congrats Jacob" during the games. They have to wait until the blackout period ends on February 24th. And in the digital economy, that's not a delay, that's a death sentence. The news cycle is completely moved on. The dopamine hit is long gone. 24 hours is a lifetime online, and 3 weeks is a graveyard. The value evaporates, and the only brands left standing are the ones who paid the toll. And that's the punchline of the silencing strategy. The Olympic system can monetize Jacob from every angle, but if Jacob turns on his own camera to monetize his own story with his own partners, he risks a Rule 40 violation. And this brings us to the systemic why. Okay, at this point, Sarah's story and Jacob's story should raise one obvious question. Why are the rules so tight? Why does the IOC care so much about stopping a ski shop from saying good luck or a Skateblade company from saying congratulations? Because we can be angry about it, and trust me, I am, but if we want to understand the system, we have to understand the motive. And the answer to this, it's always the same. Follow the money. The IOC isn't doing this because they're being mean, they're doing it because there is a massive amount of money at stake. The IOC generated roughly $7.7 billion in commercial revenue. And thanks to their documents, we know where it comes from. The biggest chunk by far is broadcast rights, about $4.6 billion. That's the networks paying for exclusive rights to the games. It's the NBCs in the United States, it's the CBCs in Canada. And the second chunk of this is the top program, the Olympic Partner Program, around $3 billion, or 30%. That's the Visa, Coca-Cola, Samsung, Omega, Alibaba, the big dogs. And to understand Rule 40, you have to understand what the companies are buying. They aren't just buying ads next to the ski race, they're buying exclusivity. Visa pays to be the only payment method associated with the Olympics. So if Sarah's local credit union runs an ad celebrating her medal, that dilutes Visa's exclusivity. If Jacob's energy drink sponsor posts like he's at the games, that threatens Coca-Cola's investment. So Rule 40 isn't really a rule for the athletes. It's the product the IOC sells. The clean venue, the enforced silence, the absence of other brands. The silence is what the IOC sells to the top partners for billions of dollars. Now, if we were in an IOC boardroom right now, we'd be hearing these words screamed over and over. But what about solidarity? That's their answer to everything. They say they redistribute 90% of their revenue back to sport. Sometimes that's even framed at about $4.7 million per day. But here's the trick. When the IOC says distributed, they don't mean paid to athletes. They mean it flows into the Olympic system. The organizing committees to stage the games, the Milano Cortinas, the Vancouvers, the Sochis, the Beijings, it's the venues, it's the security, it's operations. It also goes to international federations and national Olympic committees. And yes, some of that spending is necessary to run the Olympics, but if this is about the athletes, then the only number that matters is how much actually reaches athletes directly. Because the IOC uses solidarity like it's a paycheck, but we get to do some math with their own terms. Total IOC revenue from 2021 to 2024, roughly $7.7 billion. And they say they keep about 10% of that for IOC administration. 10% of 7.7 billion is roughly 770 million. That covers the IOC administration in Lausanne, the promotion of the movement, the Olympic Museum, the staff, etc. Now compare that to the direct solidarity budget, the part that's actually framed as athlete support. That comes in the form of scholarships, training grants, refugee programs, direct support line. That's reported to be around $650 million for the 2025 to 2028 cycle. And if you see the discrepancy there, that's the friction. The athlete is told to give up your commercial rights for the greater good, for solidarity, but the entity managing that greater good is retaining nearly $1 billion for its own operations and reserves. And then come back to Sarah and Jacob. During the games period, the exact moment, the exact window their stories are valuable, Sarah and Jacob received $0 in direct revenue for their digital content, while their faces, emotions, and narratives drive the entire attention economy. And here's the part that should bother you. It's a multi-billion-dollar equation. Everyone gets paid except the athletes. The broadcasters make money on ads, the sponsors make money on sales, the IOC makes money on rights fees, the contractors get paid, the security guards get paid, and the athlete, they get a medal. Maybe. This is the contradiction that you're supposed to ignore. The IOC frames Rule 40 as fairness, as solidarity, but functionally it creates a two-tier world. Olympic partners can monetize, celebrate, activate, and dominate the moment. But non-Olympic partners, the ones actually funding Sarah's boots and Jacob's blades, are legally restricted from doing what sponsorship is for, recognition when it matters. So when you hear 90% distributed, here's the honest question. Distributed to whom and on what timeline? Because Sarah's rent doesn't get paid by a percentage, Jacob's travel doesn't get paid by a clever slogan, and a congratulatory post that's banned until February 24th isn't solidarity, it's delayed permission after the value expires. Which brings us to the real trade-off at the center of the entire silencing strategy. So Sarah and Jacob are entering into what lawyers call a contract of adhesion, a take it or leave it deal. If you want a shot at a medal, at all of the attention we give, you have to surrender your commercial rights and freedoms for 27 days. And this is where the non-profit story starts to crack. Because on paper, the IOC claims to exist for humanity, a movement, a mission, a public good. But in practice, Sarah and Jacob are small businesses. They have expenses, coaches, flights, physio, rent, equipment, and for 1 month every 4 years, that individual enterprise is forced to operate strictly inside a regulated model, while the organizer operates like a hyper-capitalist monopoly selling exclusivity. And the IOC isn't doing this from a place of fragility. They are institutionally secure. They've already pre-sold 18.4 billion with a B in rights through 2036. And they have 4.88 billion in savings for a rainy day just sitting there. That's the part that makes this trade-off feel so one-sided. The organization is financially safe for the next decade plus. Long-term contracts, locked-in partners, guaranteed rights fees. But the athlete is told, give up your earning window now for the greater good. And if you don't comply, the system isn't enforced with suggestions, it's enforced with consequences. If the IOC or their NOC decides you crossed the line, they can force you to withdraw or amend content immediately. And in serious cases, it can escalate to monetary measures or sporting sanctions, including getting kicked out of the Olympic Village. Sporting sanctions and being kicked out of the village? The ultimate threat isn't embarrassment, it's the one thing that every athlete has spent their entire life trying to earn, the right to compete. So what kind of choice is that, really? And that's why the language is written to feel boring, because it's easier to enforce silence when the muzzle looks like paperwork. But here's the thing, we're living in the influencer era, and that creates a real problem for the IOC, and they can't fully solve it with 20th century legal walls because distribution has shifted. In the old model, the IOC could gatekeep the story through broadcasters. In the new model, athletes are broadcasters. If Jacob has more reach than an official channel in certain markets, if his clips outperform official highlights, then the athlete is no longer just talent, they're a media company, which raises real questions that the IOC does not want asked out loud. If athletes now control distribution, how long can the IOC keep controlling monetization? Because the silencing strategy only works if the talent accepts the deal. And right now the deal is simple. Give us the peak moment, take your earnings later. So the next time you see an athlete post a generic thank you, a plain photo, no uniform, no venue, no medal, don't assume they're being modest, assume they're complying. Remember the October 29th in-market deadline. Remember the 27-day blackout period, January 30th to February 24th. And remember what sits on the other side of that silence. 7.7 billion in one cycle. A 1.134 billion gain in the year of the games alone, 4.88 billion in reserves, 18.4 billion already secured through 2036. Because in this system, the Olympics don't just measure performance, they measure compliance. The IOC doesn't just want your sweat, they want your silence.